Welcome. Sorry, I just realized that I was muted. Happy Sunday. Welcome to our special event today at C Admissions. We are discussing the Wharton TBD. We have a few days left, so essentially about 3 days until Wharton releases interview invite. And I thought it would be great to go through what are some of the elements that you need to consider and prepare for the Wharton TBD. So we have a longer session than our typical sessions today. We'll stay as long as there are questions in the platforms that you're joining us from. So if you're joining us from YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, just write your questions that you have as you're thinking about, obviously, the interview that is pending, the interview invite that's pending on the 19th. And this will be really helpful in terms of, guiding you through how to prepare, how to think through your own pitch to Wharton and prepare effectively for a, of course, excellent outcome. Now, we also do offer the Wharton team-based discussion interview preparation. It's essentially a simulation of the Wharton TBD. And I'll talk through more about that so you can learn how to register. Right now, we're only accepting waitlists. And then official registration opens on the 19th, the same day as Wharton interview, and it's only going to be open for a few days until seats are filled, essentially. And our goal is to help make sure that you fully understand what the Wharton TBD experience is like. You can simulate it before the, very important day, so you can understand what it feels like to be in the Wharton TBD. I'm sure most of you haven't experienced it yet, so meaning haven't interviewed previously. So this will be a really good way to experience it firsthand so that you go in much more comfortable, much more, of course, ready for your, actual official Wharton TBD. So we'll talk more about that along the way. And today, like I said, we're going to go through the experiences or what Wharton TBD looks like, what the expectations are of them in terms of your performance, and we'll break down the prompt itself, which I know it's going to be an important piece. All right, so I will be monitoring a few screens, so I apologize if you see me looking to the side. That is what I'm doing. So for those of you who are new to our platforms, I want to just introduce us briefly. So I'm Susan Barashai, founder of C Admissions, which is a boutique admission coaching firm focused on providing tailored support to highly ambitious applicants who are looking to really put their best foot forward for top-ranked business schools. We primarily focus on top 20 business school, the M7s, the Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, and the other M7s, as well as any of the schools within the top 20. Our focus is to help understand who you are, what you bring to the table, your thought process, and be able to help you present those experiences in a way that business schools are expecting and looking for in highly successful MBA candidates. We do have a very rigorous, proven process that we follow, but of course it's very customized to the individual because some people need more hand-holding than others, and we customize our approach based on those, but following the pillars that we have seen time and again be successful in this process. We do have a 94% placement rate, which means that this proven process actually works. So we're not looking to change that process. So for today, just a brief commentary. Like I said, we will be going through the Wharton TBD. So this is a fully Wharton TBD experience. We're going to first talk through the format, best practices to collaborate, and how to demonstrate leadership. how to structure responses for this year's prompt. So I'm giving you the prompt in advance, so you can start thinking through this. Common pitfalls to avoid and Q&A. I will be also talking about the Wharton TBD simulation or mock that we have. We offer as a resource for those who really want to make sure that they have obviously done your research on your own and prepared your pitch, but you want the expert advice to make sure that you are not missing any components, and that you want to have a simulation with other applicants that have been invited to interview, just like yourself, to see how your delivery performs essentially in a simulation. And then, of course, joining your Wharton TBD official interview once that comes about. So let's dive into this. All right, so the first things first, on February 19th, I've had another session about this. So just as a reminder, on February 19th, Wharton releases its decision, the first round of decisions. That decision can be rejected outright. Obviously, no one wants that. You can be waitlisted, or you can be invited to interview. The invitations to interview, those who are invited to interview will also have a link that asks them to book their interview. You must remember, everyone receives the interview invite at the same time on the same day. And they have already released all of their interview options. So it's really in your best interest to make sure that you show up. You keep refreshing your page from 9 a.m. until noon, or until Wharton releases their decision. This is historically the time frame when those interview invites or decisions are released, and you want to be there when you're invited to interview to book your time as furthest out as possible. That gives you the time to actually do your research, to actually prepare, to join our Wharton TBD simulation, so that you are really fully ready to perform at your best on the day of the interview. In terms of what Wharton is looking for with this team-based discussion interview style, it evaluates essentially how you think, how you communicate, and how you work with others. They are not looking for the most innovative ideas. They are really looking for how you solve problems and how you communicate with others, obviously in this team-based discussion, which is a simulation of your Wharton experience. And of course, how you work with others. Are you someone who is receptive of other people's perspectives, or are you someone who, only sees your perspective as the ultimate way to proceed with something? They will assess your leadership abilities, not style, but abilities. Are you someone, I guess style as well, because if you are sort of a micromanager, those probably is not going to be the right fit for Wharton. So your leadership style will be assessed, your adaptability will be assessed. Obviously, they're not giving you an entire day, an entire week for you to work with this team to come up with a perfect pitch. You have 30 minutes essentially to go through this. So how do you adapt in this environment when you don't know anyone in your group beforehand? They're also looking at how you make strategic decisions based on obviously the time frame that you have, the information that you have in front of you. Obviously, you can't sit there and do research. So this is very much we've done a lot of research individually on our own. Show up here. How do we make the most out of this information that we have? It's important to also remember that while there is going to be admission team representatives on the Zoom meeting with you, they are not interacting. Once they have done those initial intro information, they will be very quiet. They won't say anything. You won't be able to see they have like poker face. No information will be made visible for you to determine if you're doing well or not. So you have to be really strong in your own stance, in your own research, knowing that you have done everything you can to prepare and show your best self in front of the admission representative. They, on the other hand, are evaluating everyone, not just you, but all the other individuals within the group, and observing how you interact with one another. They will be most likely taking a lot of notes. All right. Just as a reminder, if you have any questions on any components that I am sharing with you, please write your questions in the comment, and this way I can address them. We can have a conversation today. All right. So what is the admission team looking for in the Wharton TBD experience? They're, of course, looking for engagement. They don't want a wallflower. They're looking really for someone who's actually fully engaged and participating. But that doesn't mean that you have to be overbearing. Doesn't mean that you have to dominate the conversation. That is not what they're looking for. You have to speak when you have something to say, ask questions when you have some questions to ask. But it's not about speaking for everything. It's really being fully present, fully engaged with your team in where the conversation is going, asking appropriate questions, helping the conversation move forward. They are looking for your critical thinking, particularly under pressure. Again, you have 30 minutes to come up with a pitch that you all, or as much as possible, agree in terms of how to approach this problem, and that you are able to move the team forward, right? They're also looking for your ability to build on other people's ideas. Again, you may have thought a lot about this. You have your perspective on what is the right approach to the problem, but the reality is that other people also have great ideas. They don't always have to, but they do have ideas that can add and make your presentation much more dynamic. And the same thing goes for you. If you are someone who has some ideas, but someone else in the team has had a lot more value to add to this conversation, you wouldn't want someone not to accept your perspective or your ideas. So it's really important that you recognize your role, whether you are sort of the main star or not. It doesn't matter. It's about building on other people's ideas. You also want, they are looking for, poise and self-awareness. If someone is not behaving the way they should be behaving in a business setting, it's not about getting angry. It's really about having poise, recognizing that you need to address things when it's appropriate, and approach it in the right way. And of course, have very much a self-awareness approach to, this conversation that you have here. All right, let's continue. So here is the prompt. It's very long for this this application cycle. They do have one prompt for each application cycle, and the prompt is going to be essentially, Wharton has two impact communities. So an impact community is a community where people who think about the same problems in society come together from different angles to solve that problem. So social equity is one of their communities that they currently have. An environment community is another impact community that Wharton has. So people who are very much focused on the environmental impact, perhaps of business, are going to be individuals that are coming at it from different perspectives. So this can be, a legal perspective. It could be from a variety of different angles. So now Wharton, with this prompt, has asked that they are looking to create another impact community, and they are wanting you to come up with one of those impact community. So your job is to find another impact community that you want to propose to Wharton to solve that is focused on an emerging topic of global interest. That is the important component that you have to decide on. What is this global interest? And I'm going to go through a few different pieces of this prompt that you want to and how to address it. Okay, so I see a question here on Instagram. It says, for the TBD, do we jump straight into the exercise, or do we have time for some intros to understand each member's background? So there will be, so that's an excellent question. So there will be a intro. So you will go sort of like the proverbially around the table to introduce yourself. So you'll have a little bit of a intro. So where the person is coming from, what their role is, where they're working for, that kind of detail. And then each one you'll go around the room with your 1-minute pitch that is part of your responsibility as a MBA candidate to deliver in the TBD. Once those two pieces are done, which I suggest that you should be taking a lot of notes, then the official TBD, team-based discussion, begins based on, obviously, the prompt. The prompt will be read so that you guys are reminded again of what it is that you are doing, and then you will dive into the discussion itself. Hopefully that answers the question. Any follow-up, please feel free to write them in the comments. All right, let's continue. So this is the prompt. Your job is to find a topic, an emerging topic of global interest to create a new impact community. So how do you propose an impactful new Wharton impact community? So your job is to choose an emerging global issue that aligns with Wharton's mission. Making better businesses, that is essentially one of Wharton's missions, and your job is to look at from a global perspective. I would say make sure that you are choosing something that you think that it's really important in the global economy or global issue, but don't try to just follow the popular topic. That's definitely something to be mindful of, and we'll talk through what are some options for that as well. So your job then is to identify. So choosing a global issue is the first thing. The second thing is you have to identify potential partners and organizations for collaboration. So these are outside of Wharton, potential partners. Define learning outcomes for members. And actually, so sorry, one second, going back to the potential partners, these partners can be both Wharton and non-Wharton, so they have to be both, not just one or the other. You want to define then, obviously, the outcomes for the members that want to participate in this impact community, and present a clear, compelling vision for why this community matters. Where do you see the value in this, right? So how do you choose a global issue? This is something that every year, the biggest challenge in this process is choosing the thing that you want to talk about, right? And this challenge this year is the global issue. Now, I know that I've seen in round one, because obviously we've already gone through one round of interviews, I've seen a lot of topics around AI. So this will be popular. It's your choice to decide if you think AI is the most important global issue that we need to be addressing, or you can choose something else. And here are some examples. These are not, the only ones, but these are some examples to think about. So you have AI and ethics, financial inclusion, sustainable supply chain, or global health access. These are some of the elements that you can think about from the perspective of what is a really important global issue that we need to bring people together to try to solve. And then you want to obviously avoid overly broad themes, so focus on specific and urgent challenges that we are experiencing currently. And I apologize on the typo there. All right, let's continue. So once you have chosen the partner, so that's really the first thing that you have to do, global issue rather. You cannot look at partners, you can't look at anything else until you decide what is the problem that you want to be solving, right? So the global issue is really important. I would start looking at what are some global issues that you care about, that are important on a global, from a global perspective. Why, you should have a why in that as well. Now, once you have decided on what that is for you, then look at the right partners to bring together. Last round, I had made a comment because sometimes, there were some questions that applicants were asking about, who should these individuals be in terms of the global partners? Are we looking at, like, there's already a budget in mind thinking about this? And I want you to think from the global partners perspective, or selecting global partners as there is no budget. You have unlimited budget, right, to make this happen. So they haven't given you a budget to work with, and your job is to just come up with something that you think it's the best option in terms of creating a community of people who are making an impact in the world. So finding partners can be companies that are very prominent in the area that you have chosen, nonprofits that are also working in that area, research institutions, think tanks, and all of those different kinds of categories of businesses that may add value to this global community that you are interested in. So, for example, if AI and ethics is really important to you, potential partners could include OpenAI, World Economic Forum, Wharton's AI for Business initiative. So you want to have the right partners that are both at Wharton as well as beyond Wharton. So these are global organizations. So I see another question on Instagram. It says, is this interview only done virtually, or is there the option to do this in person? This year, it's only done virtually. So there's no in-person interviews, only virtually. And you'll be in this proverbial, virtual room that you will be working with other peers to solve this problem. One thing I will just want to note for everyone that you can't have any notes. You can't have any shared notes on screens. This is you can't do any research. If you want to have notes, go the old school way, pen and paper in front of you, and, you'll be working through that way, but everything is done online. All right, let's continue. So, the other groups that I mentioned is leverage Wharton and Penn resources. So this is an important nuance. Sometimes applicants think that when they talk about Wharton resources, they're just looking at the MBA. It actually can entail both undergraduate and graduate, all the other institutions within University of Pennsylvania. So if you're focused on healthcare, then obviously individuals within the healthcare sphere should be brought to the conversation. So this way you can, have the most robust community of people with different perspectives, different backgrounds, different ways of thinking to solve. Obviously, these are globally important topics to focus on, that it's not an easy fix, right? So you need individuals who come with different perspectives to the table. So these at Wharton, it could be research centers, it could be faculty who have experience in that particular area. This typically ends up being, sort of like superstars in their field. If there are any particular courses that you want to make sure that they are part of this community, these are, this is the right place to do it. Student clubs, conferences. Again, Wharton and University of Pennsylvania has a lot of resources that they put together. And what they're asking you to do is think through what are the elements that this community needs in order for it to be as successful as possible. It's not just about networking, it's also about solving problems, right? So if you think about, if you choose a global economic development kind of initiative like the Huntsman program, which is for undergraduates at Wharton, would be something to consider bringing to the table, essentially, right? In terms of learning outcomes, so once you've decided, obviously you have the global topic that you're solving, then you have decided on your external partners, internal to Wharton and Penn. And now you need learning outcomes. There's no purpose of creating a community if there's nothing to be learned. So learning outcome is important. Your questions that you must answer based on how you put this together. And this really, it's about, I'm a firm believer around quality, depth versus just putting in a bunch of different things. Your job then for each of the components that you are considering is to think, how will this impact the impact community, who are, developing, who are leaders in this space, or who will be leaders in this space, right? So if you're an MBA student, you'll be participating in this in the future. And think of this as, you're actually going to be a part of this learning community. What would you want it to be like? What would you want to learn from these different resources that are being brought together? Then you want to look at, of course, what tangible skills, right? How is this going to be structured? What tangible skills will you be learning? Or will this group of people learning? What knowledge transfer will happen as a result of bringing these individuals together? And what will the experiences be like for them in terms of gaining and being able to impact this global topic that is really important to everyone? And obviously it's something that is impacting, beyond just the business world. These questions are really important to ask for a few reasons. One, you want to make sure that you are going in the right direction yourself, first and foremost. But second, if you when you show up to your Wharton TBD session and your team chooses another topic that's not yours to solve, how do you evaluate? How do you contribute to that conversation if you haven't done research on that topic per se? Your critical thinking will come into play if you have thought through these details enough to be able to use these questions to evaluate other people's ideas, not to criticize it, but rather to help it grow and help make it in a way that it's dynamic, that it's going to be most impactful to the conversation, and obviously helping your team put together a strong presentation to be delivered at the end of your 30-minute discussion itself. Okay, so I see there's another question on Instagram. I love all these questions. So do we get the prompt in advance or the day of the interview? So I have given the prompt already that you have. Wharton will only give you the prompt once you're invited to interview on the day of the interview. So if you want to get a head start, this is the prompt that you will get when you're invited to interview. But they will officially give you the prompt with the invite of the interview. Those that are not invited to interview will, of course, not get the prompt, right? It's a different letter. Okay, I see another question. Should my pitch idea be linked to my background? Excellent question. Only if it makes sense. So if your background has nothing to do with an emerging global issue, then probably not. You should really focus on the global emerging issue that we're experiencing. That should be the main focus. It doesn't need to be tied to your background. However, if you see perhaps you are in like supply chain and your work, your experiences are valuable in this discussion, then you can integrate that. But the main topic of the pitch should be a global emerging issue, which is what they're asking of all applicants to do. Beautiful. Okay, I'm putting on the screen here. We will be offering a Wharton TBD simulation for those who are interested. This is a resource. You can see the link on the screen. And if you go to our website, cadmissions.com, you can read through what this TBD looks like and how we will guide you through the simulation and the feedback that you receive pre and post simulation itself. I'll talk more about it afterwards. So let's continue. Okay, so we've done this part. So let's move to the next slide. So what are some of the things that you should be considering as you prepare for the Wharton TBD? This is about, obviously, contributions. Again, your idea may not be picked, and it doesn't have to be picked, and you should not be upset about it if your idea is not picked. I know you put a lot of effort, but you have to just let it go. Instead, focusing on still asking questions, still being a full active member of this discussion, irrespective of them choosing your idea or not, right? So your job is to balance participation. So what does this mean from your perspective, of course, from your contribution rather? So this means you might want to speak early, ask questions, maybe help with the structure of the TBD. So you can be the timekeeper, you can be the note taker. You can obviously contribute. It doesn't. You're not mutually. These are not mutually exclusive. So if you're a timekeeper, doesn't mean that you don't have to talk. It just means that you are naturally going to be participating, demonstrating your skill set to the admission reps that are present and monitoring this session. In a way that you can contribute is to summarize ideas. So you can say something like, so I hear everyone, I think we have agreed that this is the way that we're going to tackle this particular topic, right? Or you may need to clarify some components. So you can say something like, did you mean X? Right? So you can clarify so that everyone is on the same page. This is actually something that often applicants don't do, the clarifying part, because they're afraid that it's going to impact their evaluation. And actually it doesn't, but only if you do it right. So you shouldn't be waiting 10 minutes after the discussion to come back and ask a clarifying question. It should be happening as things are progressing, which means that you are perfectly present during the session. And if you are unclear about something, definitely ask the question. Sometimes, applicants in the room with you, which is randomly put together, they may have very much, perhaps a jargon-heavy background, and clarification are needed. It's okay for you to ask, is what I'm trying to get at. And then you also want to make sure that you're building on people's ideas. So when I said earlier, someone asked the question on Instagram, essentially make sure that you're taking notes in that intro discussion. This is where it's going to be really important, is that, if Jane Doe had a brilliant idea, but Jane Doe is not talking very much, it's okay for me to say, Jane, I heard you had some really interesting components in your opening pitch. Do you mind expanding on that a little bit in this area? It may be something that we can find valuable, right? So you are demonstrating that you are someone who is inclusive. You're bringing other people to the conversation. You are paying attention to what people are saying or what your teammates are saying. And you are bringing sort of like this balance in the discussion. That's not just the person who is the loudest that's dominating the conversation. And then also you want to be using strategic pauses to allow input from others, right? So this means you may have an idea and you may say, is everyone in agreement? And then pause and wait for everyone to say what their ideas were. Someone will say, oh yeah, that's perfect. Or others will say, actually, how about we do this? So, right, you are bringing people into the conversation by having those pauses to make sure that everyone is on the same page. I know this can feel a lot, but this is a process of making sure that you have prepared fully in advance, meaning you have done all your work that you need to do for your idea in advance. And then your focus here during the TBD is to make sure that your team is successful collectively, right? Because even though your evaluation is not based on your team's performance, your evaluation is based on your reaction to your team's performance. How you're engaging with them, it's actually quite an important piece here. Okay, we have another Instagram question. Do we upload our pitch ideas in advance, or do we give the pitch live the day of the interview? Yes, you give your pitch live the day of the interview. Essentially, you don't have to submit anything in advance. You will practice in advance that you have a 1-minute pitch. Make sure that it's no longer than 1 minute to make sure that you're not being dinged for showing up underprepared, right, for the session. So make sure your pitch is 1 minute, prepare in advance, practice it in advance, deliver it naturally in advance, because oftentimes anxiety happens during the day of the interview, and you may stumble on words. If you try to rush through something, people may not understand. So deliver it in a way that actually is 1 minute, captures the macro level pieces, and then you can always say that you want to be able to, that you can dive deeper into any components as you have the team discussion afterwards. Okay, let's continue. So, all right, so the demonstrating leadership I mentioned earlier, it's really an important piece of, all of these are important pieces of your Wharton TBD experience. To demonstrate leadership, it's not only about to lead the team, right? It's important for you all to internalize that part. They're not really looking for everyone to be leaders, because, you know, if everyone is leader, who are you leading is the question that ends up happening, right? And all it does is really create chaos. So it's not about, you know, being the leader in a traditional sense of the word. But the way you can lead is to pose thoughtful questions to guide the discussion, right? So if someone presents an idea of a potential partner that you may agree or may not agree with, as being the right partner to, you know, join this impact community, then you may want to pose a question by saying, I thought that this community has this particular focus. How do you see this community serving this impact community that we chose, and this global impact community that we've chosen as our topic, right? So you're asking questions to learn from their perspective, and you are also presenting your perspective on what that partner, for example, is can be perceived as, right? So this way it's a discussion, and it's helping the team to make sure that they're choosing the right things. And it's not about saying yes or no from your perspective, but rather guiding the discussion. As a leader, you want to also acknowledge people's perspectives. So say, okay, you know, John Smith, I think you had a wonderful idea. I think this will help in this particular way, but you don't have to say it all the time for everyone's idea, because that can get, being transparent, a little bit annoying. So do it when it makes sense. And in like maybe once or twice, it's kind of the maximum that you want to do it. Just because every time someone is speaking, the timer still continues to tick. So you don't want to be, telling everyone that they did a good job, and that's obviously taking away time from the discussion itself. You want to integrate people's perspectives into the table, into the discussion naturally, if it makes sense. If you feel like it doesn't make sense, it's okay to push back, but do it in a respectful manner. And then, of course, you want to steer the group towards consensus without dictating. So when I said earlier, make sure that you give your perspective, but then ask questions for clarification. Typically, people have a tendency to see the error in their thinking if you approach it in that particular way, especially if you don't agree with an approach. Okay, let's see if we have more questions. Okay, so we have more questions on Instagram. It's a lively discussion today on Instagram. I love it. So the question is, so we only have maximum 1 minute to share our pitch ideas. Is it okay for the pitch to be under 1 minute, or should it be maximizing the 1 minute? Honestly, if it's under 1 minute, you haven't included enough information. Typically, the biggest challenge in this TBD is that it is going to be over 1 minute all the time. So your challenge is to keep it within a minute time. For some reason, if you are able to do it under a minute, I honestly would say really assess your delivery of your pitch, because it shouldn't be. I would say maximize the 1 minute time frame. Next question, how long do we have for the full discussion? Is it 30 minutes only? That is correct, only 30 minutes. Once the 30 minutes is over, then you have 5 minutes to present to the moderator or moderators, depending on how many are going to be there in the room with you. So the discussion itself is 30 minutes, 5-minute presentation, and then the one-on-one interview with a moderator. If it's one moderator, everyone will go through that process. If it's multiple moderators, then you'll be divided into groups, essentially, that each moderator will, have a person. And that is a 10-minute one-on-one interview. I did have another session on Wharton TBD that if you go to my YouTube channel, I walk through in more details on how that piece works. All right. So next component that we want to keep in mind is time management and structuring the discussion. So that question was perfect timing. 30 minutes is the amount of time that you have as a team to discuss. And if you are a full roster, which means 6 in total, although last round, I had a client who was in a group of 7 people, which became really, really tough to manage that group in a 30-minute time frame. So you really want to make sure that it's a very stressful, honestly, a very stressful experience, because you have to do a lot of different things in a very short period of time. So time management is going to be really important in this process. And I will say, try to move the conversation as much as possible, as quickly as possible. So aim for quick alignment on issues that you guys are choosing. So especially the global emerging issue. Don't spend too much time on that. Make sure that you are breaking the session internally, first and foremost. You know all the pieces that you have to cover in the Wharton TBD. How much time do you have collectively for each piece? So if it's 5 minutes and there's 6 people, everyone talks, you have less than a minute to talk, essentially. I want you to really internalize this process from that lens, because you will just realize how little time you have in this process. And it's obviously really important because it will help you just manage time more effectively. Also, initially, when you start the session, I strongly encourage that you divide responsibilities efficiently across different teams. So who's going to be the timekeeper, who's going to be the note taker. I think those are mostly the 2 pieces, but that doesn't mean that you leave the timekeeping and note taking to the persons who have been assigned, because you don't know them. You have to really be also taking notes yourself, but they may be the sort of like the guides in the team dynamic, whether that's you or someone else. It doesn't have to be you, essentially. And then you want to you do this obviously to make sure that everyone is on the same page and maximize your team strength. And always keep the end goal in mind. Your focus is to deliver by the end of this process a cohesive, clear presentation on what the global issue as a team you have agreed on, and what are the parameters that you have decided will be answering all the questions that Wharton has given you in terms of the problem that you are solving, and that is defining a new impact community at Wharton. So let me move the slide. All right. Just monitoring to see if there's any questions. If you guys have questions as I'm going through this process, please write your question in the comment form, in the comment section of whichever platform you're joining us from. This way I can answer it live. Otherwise, we'll try to answer offline some of the questions that may come in, as these will be replayed, especially on our YouTube channel. So, common mistakes to avoid in the Wharton TBD: over talking or interrupting. That's actually not a ideal quality to demonstrate in a Wharton TBD. I mean, this is true in a team, but especially in this platform, in this space where your contributions are directly impacting the outcome of your Wharton application. Collaboration matters, especially in Wharton, because that's how the Wharton experience is structured. And if they look at it from the perspective of, if you can't do this in a structure, in a setting where you're being evaluated, how will you actually perform on campus when you have to do this every single day? Also, not showing prepared. That's a huge no-no. I've heard stories of applicants who showed up to the Wharton TBD thinking that they can ad-lib the conversation, or that this is a discussion that they didn't have to prepare anything in advance. These are major mistakes that you don't want to do. Obviously, that will absolutely impact your application outcome. And if you're here watching this, means you're going to be taking my advice and actually going in prepared with your responses, with your 1-minute pitch, with your outline, and with the full research that you have done in terms of what community do you think Wharton should include, and making sure that you're, of course, interacting effectively with your team. This is a little bit tricky, especially if someone operates better in unstructured setting. Wharton is looking for structure, so you will be challenged to be much more structured around how you proceed with solving the problem. And that's why you can be definitely unstructured on your own time, in your own preparatory work, and then make sure that you follow a structure, because your team will follow a structure in the TBD. The other mistake that people make is failing to engage the teams. I have heard stories where applicants didn't seem like they wanted to be there, and were resistant to engaging in the topic. That's actually definitely going to impact your application. You want to be engaged. You want to be there. You also want to be moved by the decisions that you're making here. This is not an irrelevant decision. It's quite important, because your quote-unquote vote determines what project it takes place in the real world, and where do we emphasize essentially the spotlight on in terms of global issues. So you should be showing up to this fully engaged and fully caring about how this conversation goes, even if the topic that you think is more important is not chosen. And then also major red flag is ignoring the time limit. You do have the 1 minute pitch. If you are showing up with a 2 minute pitch, a minute and 10 minute, 1 minute and 10 second pitch, all of those are red flags. So make sure that you have practiced delivering that 1 minute pitch once you have done all the research that you need to do. You don't do the 1 minute pitch in the process of your research. You conduct all your research first. You feel like you have left no stones unturned in terms of, all the parameters that Wharton is asking of you. Then your job is to say, okay, now once I have all of this, what's important for me to deliver in 1 minute to capture my efforts, capture my preparation, to showcase that I have done this in advance, and it's delivered within 1 minute, knowing that I can dive deeper into any of the components that I have researched in the discussion that follows the 1 minute pitch. All right, let's see if we have questions. All right, I see a question. Is Penn giving the 1 minute pitch guidance, or is this just the best practice? No, they are giving you 1 minute guidance. So they're telling you exactly what you need to do, and you actually have to follow that guidance that they're giving. So I have heard stories. Obviously, I'm not present when these interviews are happening, but I have heard stories of applicants showing up with a ad-lib discussion. The guideline says deliver 1 minute pitch. You have to follow the guidelines, essentially. Beautiful. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so what does a winning approach look like? Clear and well-defined issue that you show up with, right? Again, as a team, you will also have a clear and well-defined issue collectively, but first part is your work, and second part is your team's work, right? So if you do well and everyone in the team does well in the preparation pre-interview, then you will have a very clear and defined issue that you are solving with, or that you are presenting with this impact community itself. So financial inclusion in emerging markets, like just be really specific as to what is this issue that you are looking to put a spotlight on with this impact community. Second thing is relevant and realistic partners. And some examples are World Bank, Kiva, Wharton Social Impact Initiatives. Again, these are partners both internally and externally. Internally within UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, and Wharton, as well as externally, sort of other organizations, nonprofits, businesses that are focusing their efforts on that global issue. So this way you are really well versed into what this world looks like in terms of the issue that you are putting a spotlight on. And realistic, I just mean that these are individuals or organizations that are that have realistic opportunity to partner with Wharton. Again, this has nothing to do with budgets, right? So you haven't been given a budget, you won't be given a budget for this year at least. So you don't need to worry on the budgeting component of this. This is more about who would be the ideal people to be working with. You also want to demonstrate that you have a really deep understanding of Wharton, and that you are thoughtfully using the resources. This is not about just like bringing everything into the pot and let everyone figure out what they want to be a part of. No, you have to be a leader who makes decisions, who decides what resources are best and most beneficial to this community to move the needle forward in solving the issue that you want the impact communities to solve. Also, you want, that's winning approach. This is more focused on the team itself. Is when you have a balanced team dynamic where everyone has an opportunity to speak, everyone has an opportunity to listen, everyone is focused on the end objective, which is identifying the right impact community collectively, right? And coming up with resources that are going to be valuable to this community itself. And then, of course, a structured, compelling final presentation that ties all of the discussion together in an effective way. Because the team consists of 5 to 6 people in total, oftentimes this means that each person in the team takes a portion of the presentation to deliver as far as the final presentation. But there is nothing wrong with choosing a singular representative for the team to deliver the full presentation. This is a team that the team collectively determines what that final conversation is going to look like, essentially. Great. So as a final note here, if you want to have a Wharton simulation to make sure that you have, again, left no stones unturned in terms of your preparation, you're obviously going to use this presentation to come up with your impact community that you want to present. If you join our Wharton TBD mock, which is again a simulation, what we will be doing is we're going to have a 20-minute one-on-one conversation to discuss what your pitch looks like, what your idea looks like, what areas you need to be focusing on and how to improve it. So we would be discussing that. Then you would join one of our Wharton TBD experience simulations. Essentially, it's a 2-hour block on your calendar that you will participate. It's essentially a simulation, exactly how it will show up on your Wharton interview day. And we will go through the same process just like Wharton does, so that you can participate in this group. Everyone in the room will have an interview, so everyone is interviewing. Everyone should be taking this process very seriously. And then you will have a one-on-one after the TBD, just again, the same way as you will have it in the actual Wharton experience. After that, you will get also a one-on-one feedback session where we will talk about how did you perform, what you need to be mindful of, what you did well, what you didn't do so well, so make sure that you are going to be fully ready for your Wharton actual TBD. Right now, until the 19th, we're only accepting waitlists. So if you go to See Admissions website, or you can look at the shortened link on the screen. If you go there, you can join the waitlist. There's no obligation. Once you have the invite, you will be required to upload your Wharton invite to register for this. But you can join the waitlist now so that you can be notified immediately once the registration opens. So you can obviously reserve your seat. We have only 3 sets of sessions, mock sessions. So once those fill up, we will be closing the TBDs. So obviously you want to be as proactive as possible in this process, because you have a maximum of a 3-week window to get everything done for Wharton. So if you are interested in that, definitely join. Again, just by joining the waitlist, you're not obligated to officially register. This is more of, I'm interested in this. Once I get an interview invite, I will be interested in learning more about and joining the Wharton TBD. All right, any final questions? All righty. Let's see what we got in the registration. Okay, so there is this question that came through the registration that's actually quite important. So with the one-on-one TBD, this will be the last question that I will answer today. But if you have questions afterwards, please feel free to write your questions in the in the comments of whichever platform you're watching this, and I will comment. I will respond in comment form, anyone that comes in within the next week, so that I know that you're going through this process and preparing. Okay, so what's the best way to discuss my contribution if the discussion didn't go well? So this question is referring to the one-on-one session that happens after the Wharton team-based discussion. So after the team-based discussion, you have a one-on-one 10-minute conversation with one of the moderators in the room, where they ask you essentially, what did you think of the Wharton TBD? What did you do well, or what did the team do well? Where could you have done better? That kind of question. My recommendation to everyone is to be really thoughtful in this process. Assess honestly where you could have done better, where the team could have done better, and if you could do it all over again, how would you do it slightly differently? This is not about throwing anyone under the bus, but it's also about being authentic. It's also being thoughtful, and it is also requiring you to be obviously someone who is reflective and looks to learn and grow. So if the team didn't perform, like if many people had many ideas and that created a little bit of chaos, you can say something like, I think what I really liked about this experience was that we all had a lot of passion about this project, and we were really excited and brought in a lot of wonderful ideas. Given the time constraint, I think we could have done better if we were a little bit more structured, and if I would do it all over again, this is what I would do differently, right? So again, not throwing anyone under the bus, acknowledging what you did well, acknowledging what you didn't do so well. And by you, I mean the collective you, the team you, and then also taking ownership that you are also part of the team and you could have done something differently. And what would you do if you can sort of turn back time, essentially. Wonderful. So I hope this session was helpful for you. I am really excited for Wednesday. I do hope that all of you receive an interview invite. Please let us know if you received an interview invite or not. And if you are, again, interested in joining the Wharton TBD, please do so on our website. I have the link on the screen right now. And again, if you have questions, write in the comments. Every week we do have a live session on YouTube, and if you want to join and be notified when those sessions come about, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or join any one of our other platforms that we are active on. You'll see all of the different events that we are hosting. This week coming up, I will be with GMAT Club and discussing the MIT Sloan interview. So if you are interested in joining that, that will be on the 19th, also the same day that Wharton TBD announces decisions. And with that, I'm going to be talking about what MIT interview looks like. And then we're going to do a mock session afterwards. This is a private session. It is not recorded. You will not be able to replay it. So if you're interested, if you have applied to MIT, you want to join that session, and whether you participate or just are listening to other people's responses is totally okay, but you want to be present on that day. Information about this is also available on our events page. So if you go to cadmissions.com, at the top of the page, you will see events link, and you will see all the events that are happening in the month of February there, and register for as many as are interesting to you. All right, so we're over time. Thank you again for being here, for watching this session. A replay of this will be available on our YouTube channel, Admissions, and definitely feel free to use it as you go about preparing for this year's Wharton TBD. Thank you again for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in our future events. Bye-bye.